Hi there, Max Revs talks cars. I've just discovered what I think is the best supercar you can buy for under £30,000, and I'd like to share that with you right now in this video. That car is the Porsche Cayman. That's right, I said Cayman, I didn't say 911. I definitely went for the Cayman. That's the car with the engine in the right place. So let's just quickly go over the different generations. They first started with the 987, the Gen 1 and the Gen 2, and they followed that by the 981, and then the recently released 718. Now, I've test driven each one of the iterations of these cars, and I'd definitely say I've got a favourite and say that's the 987. Now, I know some of you may be saying, okay, fine, you understand why the 718 isn't the best one that's out there, because everyone's talked about the engine, so I'll keep it brief here. That engine is just lifeless to me. It doesn't communicate with you. One of the beauties of that car, the Cayman and the Boxster, is the flat 6 Boxer engine. Get it above 6,000 RPM, and suddenly it's your best friend again. This is a used buyer's guide, so obviously there are not that many 718s on the market, and those that are available are kind of like approaching list anyway. So for me, the 718, it's not even one to consider. So then we're left between the three different cars, the 987 Gen 1, Gen 2, and then the 981. Quickly covering the 987, I'd say the Gen 1 is the one to avoid, principally because of the engine issues, and also it's got less power. It was initially launched with a 2.7 litre engine, which put out about 245 brake horsepower. And then you had the 3.4 litre engine in the S model, which pumped out about 295 brake horsepower. That same engine was then uprated to 320 brake horsepower in the Gen 2. Gen 2 is the one to get out of the 987 range. It just removes the issues with the ball scoring. I believe it only affected about 5% of the cars, but still, I do believe Porsche acknowledged that there were a few design issues with the oil flow and the oil pump, and for that reason I'd say the Gen 1 is the one to avoid. So out of those two, we're going to go for the 987 Gen 2, and now it gets interesting because between the 987 Gen 2 and the 981 Cayman S, it kind of falls into two camps, and I would say I'm more in the purist camp. Now, what do I mean by that? So the 987 Gen 2 was the last Cayman to actually have the hydraulic steering, and they went for the electrically assisted steering in the 981. I know some would say that the 981 is the last Cayman before they went nuts and put the 4-cylinder engine in, and therefore that's where you want to put your money. And I'm not going to knock you, if you've got the budget, fine, go for it. But I don't believe for the extra money you pay for the 981 that you get much more than what the 987 Gen 2 has to offer. And I would actually say the 987 Gen 2 is the better buy. It's the more natural, purist sports car. For the money, I think it can't be bettered. If you had the money, I'd say go get the Cayman R. It's about an extra £14,000 in the UK for an extra 10 brake horsepower, about 50-60 kilos lighter. I don't think that's worth it in my opinion. So the 987 Gen 2 is cheaper than the 981. The interior is not as cool as the 981, but hey, you don't buy a driver's car for the luxury of the interior. It's all about driver engagement. The engine is right behind your head. It's the only place to put your engine. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. You may not agree with me, but I would say there is only one place the engine should be, and that's in the middle. Unlike a typical engine where the pistons are firing vertically, which causes the engine to be a bit taller than usual, the pistons in the Boxer are firing horizontally. That means effectively they've squished the height of the engine, and the engine is in its widest form as opposed to its tallest form like a normal engine. And what do you get from this? A low centre of gravity. They place that engine low down in the centre of the car, exactly where it needs to be, and I would say that's one of the key differentiating items of the Porsche Cayman is that Boxer engine. You get all that weight as low as possible, and you do feel it in the handling of the car. Some people might say these are things you read about in magazines, these are things you can't really feel. I'm telling you, you really feel something special when you drive a Porsche Cayman.